Hello everyone, and welcome to Bookish Babbles, the podcast where we reread our favorite books and chat about them. I'm your host Allison, and without further ado, let's get started. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 29 of Bookish Babbles. We are back with an official episode. Let's hope I remember how to do this. But before we get into, the actual episode, a lot of stuff's been happening. We have the full Covey casted and the Grandmam and probably a few others I've forgotten, so that's really exciting. The Covey are my new favorite group of characters in this series, so I am so excited to see them on screen, and I made a post about it on Instagram, and I just love seeing the whole Covey together, as well as Corio's bunkmates for District 12. They're casted as well. Smiley and Beanpole, that's their names. Their names are escaping me for a minute, so we got that going on, so that's really exciting. And we got a freaking Percy Jackson teaser trailer. Oh man. So basically, funny story. Last Saturday, Saturday night or whatever day it was, when me, my brother, and a friend, we went to see Spider-Man No Way Home, the re-release, because they, released it with re-released that movie in theaters with some extra scenes. We had a great time seeing that. And then I get home and I get a text from another friend who left me a voicemail on Facebook Messenger, and I'm like, he never leaves a voice message, what's going on? And then I open it, and all this my friend said in the message was Percy Jackson trailer, and I freaked out. Logged onto YouTube faster than I have in my entire life. Watched it, screamed, cried, startled my dog. Poor Ray. But yeah, I am so excited. Although, I can't believe we have to wait till 2024 now. So, not happy about that part. But yeah, I can't describe the feeling I had just seeing it and hearing, Walker do the voiceover of Percy's lines. Look, I didn't want to be a half-blood. Oh my gosh. I will lose it, guys, when I see Leah as Annabeth for the first time. No joke. Someone check on me when that happens. Okay, yeah, literally, it's all it showed was just Percy walking in the Camp Half-Blood shirt, and I was crying. Okay, anyway, but I'll leave a link to the trailer in the show notes in case you haven't seen it yet, or if you're like me and you just want an excuse to watch it again. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Percy Jackson, at least not yet. We're here to talk about Catching Fire. Specifically, we're talking about chapters 16 to 18, and we are wrapping up part 2. Okay, so this is the part where I remind you what happened in the book last time and what's going on this week. Okay, what happened last time? It's been a while. Let's see if I remember. Okay, last time, training montage. Katniss and Peeta are tributes again and aren't given the chance to say goodbye to their families because snow sucks. They get amazing costumes for the parade, as usual, and it ends with Darius being their new Avox. This week, they get more training time. Katniss reluctantly gets to know the other victors. Both her and Peeta shock the game makers during their private sessions, though that's still nothing compared to the bombshell Peeta drops during his interview. And Katniss experiences another painful loss literally seconds before going into the Quarter Quell, because the universe won't let her catch a break. So with that being said, let's dive into chapter 16. Okay, so this chapter picks up right where the last one left off. Katniss and Peeta are in their apartment and see, that Darius is their new Avox, because, just when Katniss was starting to feel a little good since she got to wear a literal fire outfit and glare at the audience, the rug is pulled out from under her with this, because Snow's determined not to let her have nice things, because he sucks, as I've said many times. Anyway, so Katniss is understandably very stunned, doesn't quite know what to do. After all, Darius is someone she likes and might even consider a friend, but she can't really acknowledge him since it would result in some kind of punishment for him. So Katniss runs out to her room, locks herself inside. At dinner, she isn't aware very much and only kind of listens to everyone talking about the parade around her. And at one point, Katniss purposely knocks over a dish of peas and crouches over to clean it up, Darius right beside her. It's the only chance they get to really acknowledge each other. And the moment's broken when Effie says, "Oh, that isn't your job, Katniss." After dinner, they watch the recaps and the opening ceremony. Katniss purposely avoids sitting next to Peeta, both because she feels it wouldn't be right to sit in the awfulness with him over Darius, since he wasn't Hob like Gale and Haymitch are, and because she's still mad at him for laughing when the other victors were messing with her earlier, though she still plans on saving his life in the arena. While we watch the recaps, Katniss notes how ridiculous most of the other victors look and how it's her, Peeta, and those on the younger side that still manage to look good in their costumes. Katniss immediately goes to bed after it's over and thanks Cinna and Portia as they should always be thanked. She wants to be completely alone for the night, even without Peeta, because she feels like being with him and having Darius around is kind of like a betrayal to Gale or something. I don't know. I mean, I guess I get it. Oh, car just drove by. I'm recording this episode in my car right now, guys. It's an interesting time. She feels guilty. I mean, Darius is kind of a reminder of Gale. But also, you're basically a dead girl walking, Katniss. Do whatever the fuck you feel like. Naturally, she has nightmares where tongues are a common theme, like being at a party where everyone is wearing masks and someone with a flicking tongue is stalking her, and of course the stalker is President Snow. So when she wakes up, Katniss does what I do when I wake up feeling anxious, and that's staying in my room for as long as possible and avoiding the world. Though, unlike me, she has the ability to order room service and can eat breakfast in her room alone. Though, just like me, as hard as Katniss tries to avoid the world, she can't forever. Haymitch is banging on her door half an hour before training starts because, he still wants to talk strategy. Though Katniss throws a bit of a fit because she doesn't see the point since everyone already knows everyone's skills already, unlike the year before when she hid her archery skills from the other tributes. But no, completely different game plan this year. Katniss and Peeta's job is to stay in love, obviously, and to make friends, which is every introvert's nightmare. But as Haymitch points out, this year is different because everyone going into the arena, they're experienced killers, no matter how they appear. They're not, terrified kids who could trip and fall off their platforms before the countdown is up. That's me calling myself out. I would be that kid. Anyway, if they don't make friends, then Katniss and Peeta will be the first to be hunted in the arena. And Haymitch assures them that despite being the newest victors, they'll be desirable allies since they can fight and are popular with the crowd because, being allied with someone popular means good sponsor gifts. Katniss eventually agrees to try, though she still thinks she won't be very good at it. Effie wants to escort them down because she is that kind of mom, but Haymitch convinces her that no one else will have a babysitter walking them down, so Effie compromises by walking them to the elevator. Turns out they didn't have to worry about Katniss and Peeta being late, because not many people are down there anyway, just Brutus and Anabaria. They're the Hunger Games overachievers. This is also when we learn that Anabaria is not only very skilled in hand-to-hand combat, as plenty of careers are, but another car just went by, but she's also famous for killing a tribute by ripping his throat open with her teeth. So famous, in fact, that she had her teeth altered to basically be fangs, even inlaid with gold just to top it all off. Needless to say, she's pretty popular in the capital. By the time training officially starts, only about half the tributes have shown up, and I'm here for it. Honestly, one of my favorite parts about this book is just how done the victors are with everything. The best way I can describe it's like freshman year versus senior year in college. Like, freshman year, you show up early, you look mostly put together, fresh notebooks, and you're ready to impress the professor. Then by senior year, you wear sweatpants, show up late with a Starbucks in your hand, and you fall asleep in the back of the classroom. That's just that's the vibe I'm getting from the victors. They do not give a shit, and I am living for it. Anyway, training time. Unlike last year, Katniss and Peeta decide to split up for training and cover more ground, meeting everyone. Peeta goes to throw spears with Brutus and Chaff, which, by the way, feels a bit ironic in some way, because we know Peeta ends up killing Brutus. And Katniss goes to the knot-tying station. The trainer is very happy to see Katniss, since not very many people visit the station, and he remembers her from last year, and is happy to show her some advanced knots that she'll probably won't end up using. And at some point, Finnick joins them, and he's amazing. Of course he is. I mean, not just because he's Finnick, but, he's from the fishing district, so he's been tying knots his whole life. And at this moment, he makes a noose and pretends to hang himself. I wonder if this what helped inspire what Katniss does in her private session at the end of this chapter. After that, Katniss goes over to the fire building station, where it's also less occupied, and she tries to start a fire without using matches. Soon she's joined by Wyrus and Beetee. Katniss thinks about leaving, but decides to hang out with them for a bit so that she can at least claim to Haymitch that she tried to make some friends. And she sees it as an opportunity to possibly learn about what's been going on in 3. They chat for a bit. Wyrus even starts talking about a device she's working on, something about sensing density of fabric, but then she becomes distracted by some dry straw, which I can relate to. Most of the conversations I have involve a lot of tangents and losing my train of thought, as you can probably tell if you've listened to a few episodes of this podcast. Then Katniss and Beetee end up talking in sort of code in order to confirm if whether or not their districts are actively rebelling, and confirm that yes, 3 is fighting back. And this is also when Wyrus notices the force field around the game makers, and she and Beetee teach Katniss how to spot it, which, won't be important at all in this book or anything. It's not like force fields were already brought up when we learned about Haymitch's backstory in his Hunger Games, so clearly not going to be important to the story or anything. I guess the game makers don't want to risk another arrow being fired their way again. When it's time for lunch, Katniss sees Peeta in the dining hall sitting with a group of 10, and Katniss decides she wants to eat at a table with Wyrus and Beetee, possibly Cedar, but some of the victors have other ideas. They drag the tables together so that everyone has to eat together, which, of course, the game makers and Snow would not particularly like, because, can't have unity and camaraderie among the tributes. Well, too bad. This is what happens when you pull shit like this. Anyway, Peeta catches up with Katniss as they get food. Katniss tells him she likes Wyrus and Beetee, and Peeta tells her that their nicknames are Nuts and Volts. I'll leave you guys to figure out who is who. In the conversation they have on page 230, you can see some of Katniss's pent-up frustration bubbling to the surface. So we'll start with Peeta saying, Joanna's nicknamed them Nuts and Volts, he says. I think she's nuts and he's volts. And I'm so stupid for thinking they might be useful because of something Joanna Mason said while she was oiling up her breasts for wrestling, I retort. Actually, I think the nickname's been around for years, and I didn't mean that as an insult. I'm just sharing information, he says. Well, Wyrus and Beetee are smart. They invent things. They could tell by sight that a force field had been put up between us and the game makers, and if we have to have allies, I want them. I tossed the ladle back in a pot of stew, splattering us both with gravy. What are you so angry about? Peeta asks, wiping the gravy from his shirt front. Because I teased you in the elevator? I'm sorry, I thought you would just laugh about it. Forget it, I say with a shake of my head. It's a lot of things. Darius, he says. Darius, the games, Haymitch making us team up with the others, I say. It can be just you and me, he says. I know, but maybe Haymitch is right, I say. Don't tell him I said so, but he usually is, where the games are concerned. See, this is why PETA is so good for Katniss. Gale would have kept arguing, and they would continue giving each other shit and both be in bad moods. PETA recognizes there's more going on than petty nicknames and is understanding. So at lunch, Katniss does make an effort to be more sociable. She discovers Chaff is pretty okay when he's sober and, not sexually assaulting underage girls. But she still doesn't want to team up with him. Can't imagine why. At the edible insect station, Katniss talks to the victors from 8, Cecilia and Wolf. Cecilia being the one with the 3 kids back home, who even Effie was upset to see reaped, and Wolf also being up there in age, hard of hearing, and doesn't seem to fully understand what's going on, evidenced by the fact that he keeps trying to stuff poisonous bugs in his mouth. Cashmere and Gloss from 1 invite Katniss to join them making hammocks for a while. They're polite but don't really connect with Katniss, which could be understandable since it was just last year Katniss was personally responsible for killing both the tributes from 1, kids who Gloss and Cashmere could have personally trained and mentored. Also, I still can't get over the fact that the 2 of them are siblings being forced to go into the arena together, where they definitely can't both survive. I would like to know their backstory too, because they won back-to-back years, and what are the chances that they were both reaped again at the same time? Because, they're a career district. They have multiple victors to choose from. I feel like Snow personally wanted both of them to go in together. I think he was mad at them for something, so he rigged it. I don't know, that's just my theory, conspiracy theory, speculation. And again, I'm about to praise Suzanne's writing, but it really does show what an incredible writer she is, because there are so many characters in this series who we know so little about, but are so interesting. She's good at leaving us wanting more, like with Lucy Gray. I'll never be over that one. Anyway, Katniss then briefly interacts with Inabaria at sword training. Finnick appears again while Katniss is learning fishing tips, because of course he does. And this is when he introduces her to Mags, who Katniss immediately likes, because Katniss is a good, sane person. Now listen, Mags does not have to be your favorite character or anything. She doesn't even have to be in your top 10. But if you just flat out don't like her, then there's something wrong with you. And that's just the way things are. I don't make the rules. And I'm pretty sure I've said this in a previous episode, but I want a Mags book. I want to see the 11th Hunger Games. I want to see, the state of everything a year after Lucy Gray wins. Is that so much to ask? I mean, apparently yes, because we had to wait almost a full decade before getting ballads, so I shouldn't be expecting another book in Panem anytime soon. But anyway, Katniss immediately wants Mags on her team upon meeting her, because, again, like I said, she's a good judge of character. So, and we all know Katniss can rarely play by the rules, and she's really bad at faking it. We all make fun of the fact that she does terrible with scripted lines. Even here, when she's supposed to be making allies, she chooses people no one else would choose. 2 brainiacs with no physical attributes, and an old lady. Even Katniss acknowledges this when she realizes how her choice of allies will look to Haymitch. So she goes to archery to get some sanity. And she's pretty good, to say the least. Hits every target, even multiple moving ones. She's so good that half the victors put in a request to be her ally. Even Brutus wants her on his team, because, as Haymitch says, can't be because of her sunny personality. And Haymitch reacts the way we expect him to when Katniss tells him who she wants to team up with. He sighs and says that, he'll say she's still making up her mind. Over the next 2 days, Katniss spends time with nearly everyone headed for the arena. After impressing everyone with her shooting, the air between her and the others kind of shifted, like she had been initiated into their circle and was officially one of them. and the more she gets to know them, the worse it is, because we all know what's coming. Then comes the final day where they all have their private sessions, and just like last year, Katniss is slated to go last because some things never change, I guess. Everyone kind of jokes about what they'll do for their sessions: sing, dance, do stand-up. Mags has the best answer. She decides she'll take a nap. And there are like 2 pages left in the chapter, so I'll just read it for you guys. Okay, so it starts with Peeta saying, decided what to do for the game makers yet? I shake my head. I can't really use them for target practice this year with the force field up and all. Maybe make some fish hooks? What about you? Not a clue. I keep wishing I could bake a cake or something, he says. Do some more camouflage, I suggest. If the Morphlings have left me anything to work with, he says wryly. They've been glued to that station since training started. We sit in silence for a while, and then I blurt out the thing that's on both our minds. How are we going to kill these people, Peeta? I don't know. He leans his forehead down on our entwined hands. I don't want them as allies. Why did Haymitch want us to get to know them, I say? It'll make it so much harder than last time. Except for Rue, maybe, but I guess I never really could have killed her anyway. She was just too much like Prim. Peeta looks up at me, his brow creased in thought. Her death was the most despicable thing, wasn't it? None of them were very pretty, I say, thinking of glimmering Cato's ends. They call Peeta, so I wait by myself. 15 minutes pass, then half an hour. It's close to 40 minutes before I'm called in. When I go in, I smell the sharp odor of cleaner and notice that one of the mats has been dragged into the center of the room. The mood is very different from last year's, when the game makers were half drunk and distractingly picking at tidbits from the banquet table. They whisper among themselves, looking somewhat annoyed. What did Peeta do? Something to upset them? I feel a pang of worry. That isn't good. I don't want Peeta singling himself out as a target for the game makers' anger. That's part of my job, to draw fire away from Peeta. But how did he upset them? Because I'd love to do just that and more, to break through the smug veneer of those who use their brains to find amusing ways to kill us, to make them realize that while we're vulnerable to the Capitol's cruelties, they are as well. Do you have any idea how much I hate you, I think? You who have given your talents to the games. I try to catch Plutarch Heavensby's eyes, but he seems to be intentionally ignoring me, as he has the entire training period. I remember how he sought me out for a dance, how pleased he was to show me the Mockingjay on his watch. His friendly manner has no place here. How could it, when I'm a mere tribute and he's the head game maker, so powerful, so removed, so safe? Suddenly I know just what I'm going to do. Something that will blow anything Peeta did right out of the water. I go over to the knot tying station and get a length of rope to start to manipulate it. But it's hard because I've never made this actual knot myself. I've only watched Finnick's clever fingers and they moved so fast. After about 10 minutes, I've come up with a respectable noose. I drag one of the target dummies out into the middle of the room and, using some chinning bars, hang it so it dangles by the neck. Tying its hands behind its back would be a nice touch, but I think I might be running out of time. I hurry over to the camouflage station, where some of the other tributes, undoubtedly the Morphlings, have made a colossal mess, but I find a partial container of blood-red berry juice that will serve my needs. The flesh-colored fabric of the dummy skin makes a good absorbing canvas. I carefully finger paint the words on its body, concealing them from view. Then I step away quickly to watch the reaction on the game maker's face as they read the name on the dummy. Seneca Crane. I love how Katniss always manages to shock the game makers. No wonder she's the hero of the story, and the face of the rebellion. Anyway, time for a break. When I come back, we'll talk about chapter 17. And we are back. So we pick up right where we left off. The game makers are very shocked by the audacity. Plutarch so much that he crushed a peach in his hand, though I like to think that he's excited since we know he wants her to be the symbol of the rebellion. And for a moment, Katniss feels elated, as I'm sure any of us would, since we would all love to give the game makers the middle finger. As Katniss showers and gets ready for dinner, the reality of what she did sets in, as how most of us react, I think, when we do something to break the rules. Besides, even though the game makers can't reveal what Katniss did in training, they can still take it out on her in the arena, and whatever fire they send her way could hurt Peeta too. So she starts to regret her actions a little bit, but she still isn't really sorry for doing it. So I agree, Katniss, you should not be sorry. Then at dinner, we learn the shocking thing that Peeta did. He painted a picture of Rue, specifically how she looked when Katniss covered her in flowers after her death, wanting to hold the game makers accountable, if only for a moment. Naturally, all the adults are very worried about what this will mean for Katniss and Peeta while they're in the arena. I mean, me too. But Katniss can't help but be impressed with Peeta, and, same. Good for him. This is like a good for her, good for him moment. And this is everyone's weekly reminder that Peeta is not a weak pushover, and he's as much of a rebel as Katniss is. Though his rebellious tendencies just tend to manifest differently. Also, I know in at least one previous episode I talked about how if Lucy Gray was still around and was a mentor, I think she and Peeta would really bond and have a connection in a way that Haymitch and Katniss do. Because Haymitch and Katniss tend to express their rebellion by being like fighters. I mean, both of them do things in the arena to make the Capitol look dumb, and they join the rebellion. Whereas Peeta and Lucy Gray tend to express how they feel through their art. Let's not forget that right after Lucy Gray debuted The Hanging Tree, she was told not to perform it anymore since it's too controversial. Anyway, moving on from that tangent, because, I am contractually obligated to mention Lucy Gray, at least one per episode. Something mandated by me. And then Katniss telling everyone what she did in her session is too much for Effie, and she leaves the room. Also, Peeta tells Haymitch that they don't plan on teaming up with anyone, to which Haymitch says, good, then I won't be responsible for you killing off any of my friends with your stupidity, which is just classic Haymitch. But we all know that he's lying. After they eat, they find out everyone's training scores, and Pete and Katniss make Hunger Games history because they both get a 12 out of 12, and Haymitch says that the reason the game makers do this is because it'll give the others no choice but to target them, which makes the alliance they get in inherently rebellious because it's working against what the game makers want. And after this, we get a cute Everlark moment and more great writing from Suzanne that gives me chills. So naturally, I have to read it out loud for you guys. Alright, so it starts with page 242. Peeta walks me down to my room in silence, but before he can say goodnight, I wrap my arms around him and rest my head against his chest. His hands slide up my back, and his cheek leans against my hair. I'm sorry if I made things worse, I say. No worse than I did. Why did you do it anyway, he says. I don't know, to show them that I'm more than just a piece in their games, I say. He laughs a little, no doubt remembering the night before the games last year. We were on the roof, neither of us able to sleep. Peeta had said something of the sort then, but I hadn't understood what he meant. Now I do. Me too, he tells me. And I'm not saying I'm not going to try to get you home, I mean. But if I'm perfectly honest about it, if you're perfectly honest about it, you think President Snow has probably given them direct orders to make sure we die in the arena anyway, I say. It's crossed my mind, says Peeta. It's crossed my mind too, repeatedly. But while I know I'll never leave the arena alive, I'm still holding on to the hope that Peeta will. After all, he didn't pull out those berries. I did. No one has ever doubted that Peeta's defiance was motivated by love. So maybe President Snow will prefer keeping him alive, crushed and heartbroken, as a living warning to others. But even if that happens, everyone will know we've gone out fighting, right? Peeta asks. Everyone will, I reply. And for the first time, I distance myself from the personal tragedy that has consumed me since they announced the quell. I remember the old man they shot in District 11, and Bonnie and Twill, and the rumored uprisings. Yes, everyone in the districts will be watching me to see how I handle this death sentence, this final act of President Stow's dominance. They will be looking for some sign that their battles have not been in vain. If I can make it clear that I'm still defying the capital right up to the end, the capital will have killed me, but not my spirit. What better way to give hope to the rebels? And Katniss is also sure that with Peeta still alive, he'll be able to use his pain to inspire others and move them to action. And speaking of Peeta, he continues to raise my standards for men, because when Katniss asks what they should do with their final days, he replies, "I just want to spend every possible minute of the rest of my life with you." And Katniss pulls him into her room. I'm convinced that Suzanne is purposely giving us good Everlark fluff over the next few pages because she knows the kind of pain she's putting us through in the next book. Apologies in advance for the person I'll be when we're covering Mockingjay. Y'all have to deal with that. Anyway, that night, sleeping side by side with Peeta is so comforting that both of them don't have nightmares. And even better, neither Effie nor Haymitch are going to train them for the interviews the next night, so they get a whole day to themselves. And this is without a doubt my favorite part in the book that was cut from the movie, the rooftop scene. Like, it's Katniss and Peeta, they order a bunch of food and they go to the roof for a picnic. They eat, Peeta sketches, Katniss snaps off hanging vines and practices knots with her new knowledge. They lay in the sun. They even play a game with the force field where one of them throws an apple and the other has to catch it when it bounces back up, and they are completely unbothered. By late afternoon, Katniss is laying down with her head on Peeta's lap, making a flower crown, and Peeta is playing with her hair, claiming, he's practicing his knot tying skills. Sure you are, Peeta. We see through you. And yeah, I just need to read more of this scene because, gosh darn it, it's so cute. Okay, it starts on page 245. And we start at the iconic line Peeta says, "I wish I could freeze this moment, right here, right now, and live in it forever," he says. Usually this sort of comment, the kind that hints of his undying love for me, makes me feel guilty and awful. But I feel so warm and relaxed and beyond worrying about a future I'll never have, I just let the words slip out. "Okay." I can hear the smile in his voice. "Then you'll allow it?" "I'll allow it," I say. His fingers go back to my hair and I doze off, but he rouses me to see the sunset. It's a spectacular yellow and orange blaze behind the skyline of the Capitol. "I didn't think you'd want to miss it," he says. "Thanks," I say, because I can count on my fingers the number of sunsets I have left, and I don't want to miss any of them. This scene is officially my happy place now, guys. So, excuse me, no one summons them to dinner, and they stay on the roof until bedtime and go back to Katniss's room without encountering anyone. The next morning, they're woken up by Katniss's prep team, and it's immediately too much for Octavia, so she has to leave the room right away. Peeta goes to his room for prep, and there's very little chatter as Flavius and Vinia get Katniss ready. Around lunchtime, Flavius starts visibly crying and leaves the room when Vinia gives him a look, leaving her to do the work of 3 people by herself, and manages to avoid Katniss's gaze the whole time because, she's barely keeping it together. It's only when Cinna comes in that Vinia speaks to Katniss again, and it's actually a really touching moment. She takes Katniss's hand and tells her what a privilege it's been, making her look her best, and then Vinia leaves the room quickly because, she's about to have a breakdown. And it's enough to make Katniss's heart nearly break because, even her silly, innocent prep team is aware that Katniss is not meant to make it out of the arena alive. Anyway, Cinna isn't in danger of crying and shows her the dress she'll be wearing. And it was a dress requested by Snow himself. And it's a wedding dress, the one that was the winner that everyone voted on that she was gonna wear for her wedding. Because, gotta add all the drama and devastation possible, because Hunger Games is a show. And maybe because the dress was something, like, so capital, because, like, her wedding was gonna take place in the capital, and the citizens in the capital voted on it. I don't know. It was, I guess, maybe it was, like, Snow's way of saying, like, Katniss in the end belongs to the capital or something. Probably projecting, Lucy Gray in some way in that. And, as a way to give like the middle finger to the rebels. But then, as we know, Cinna ends up giving the middle finger right back. But anyway, Katniss notes how the dress feels heavier than when she tried it on for the photo shoot, and Cinna instructs her not to raise her arms or twirl till her interview. Totally not suspicious at all. They then meet up with everyone and head down. Peeta is naturally wearing a white suit meant for grooms. We then get some exposition about how weddings in District 12 typically work. A woman rents a dress and everyone wears nicest clothes they have, fill out some forms in the Justice Building, have some cake if they can afford it, sing a traditional song, couple makes a fire in their new home together, and toast some bread. All the tributes are now gathered backstage, and they all fall silent when they see Katniss in a wedding dress. Finnick comments that he can't believe she's dressed like that, and Katniss, defends Cinna, saying, Snow's the one who made her wear it. And Kashmir says she looks ridiculous. And then Joanna has the best response to the dress by telling Katniss to make him pay for it. Katniss doesn't quite understand what Joanna means by this, but it doesn't take long to figure that out. As the interviews go on, Katniss understands the depth and betrayal that most of the victors feel, and they go about it in pretty smart and badass ways. And also, quick side tangent, but I love seeing the different reactions between the victors in 1 and 2, because Brutus and Anabaria are just there for another games, but Kashmir and Gloss are among those who express their anger and play the audience like some of the others do. And again, this is why I want a book focusing on career districts, because it's so interesting. Anyway, so Kashmir gets the ball rolling. She cries and gives a speech about how hard everything is and how hard it is for the capital citizens since they'll be losing so many of their favorite victors. Gloss highlights the kindness the capital has shown him and his sister over the years. Beatty questions the legality of the quell and if it's been looked at by experts recently. And I'm going to say yes, but, the expert was probably Snow, so it doesn't really count. Finnick recites a poem about 100 people freak out because they're sure it's meant for them. Also, the book says people, does not specify one gender, so do with that information what you will. Joanna asked if something can't be done about the whole situation, and her interview in the movie is much better. This is one of the few times when I say the movie did something better than the book. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And Chaff straight up says that the president could change the quell if he wanted to, but must not think it matters that much to anyone. I aspire to achieve that level of not giving a fuck. Anyway, so by the time Katniss gets on stage wearing her wedding dress, everyone is a complete mess, and some are even calling for change. Like, even Caesar's professionalism is beginning to crack. So, we're almost at the end of the chapter. You know what that means? Time for a reading, because it's a pretty cool thing that happens at the end of this chapter. Okay, so audience. It's on page 251. Audience is freaking out, and so it's taken from this line. Finally, there's a lull, and he, meaning Cinna, gets out. So Katniss, obviously this is a very emotional night for everyone. Is there anything you'd like to say? My voice trembles as I speak. Only that I'm so sorry you won't get to be at my wedding, but I'm glad you at least got to see me in my dress. Isn't it just the most beautiful thing? I have to look at Cinna for a signal. I know that this is the right time. I begin to twirl, slowly raising the sleeves of my heavy gown above my head. When I hear the screams of the crowd, I think it's because I must look stunning. Then I notice something is rising up around me. Smoke. From fire. Not the flickery stuff I wore last year in the chariot, but something much more real that devours my dress. I begin to panic as the smoke thickens. Charred bits of black silk swirl into the air and pearls clatter to the stage. Somehow I'm afraid to stop because my flesh doesn't seem to be burning and I know Cinna must be behind whatever is happening. So I keep spinning and spinning. For a split second I'm gasping and completely engulfed in the strange flames. Then all at once the fire is gone. I slowly come to a stop, wondering if I'm naked and why Cinna has arranged to burn away my wedding dress. But I'm not naked. I'm in a dress of the exact design of my wedding dress, only it's the color of coal and made of tiny feathers. Wonderingly, I lift my long, flowing sleeves into the air, and that's when I see myself on the television screen, clothed in black except for the white patches on my sleeve, or should I say my wings, because Cinna has turned me into a mockingjay. So, break time, and we're gonna unpack all that, because, it'll end so well, guys. And we're back. So everyone is shocked and blown away by the costume change. But Katniss is also scared for Cinna since, this is an obvious fuck you to Snow. And little do they even realize the depth of his hatred for Mockingjays. Though the capital audience is completely oblivious to this, obviously. After that, Katniss's 3 minutes are up, and now it's Peeta's turn. And he somehow manages to shock the audience more than last year. First by saying how he and Katniss already got married in secret, and grateful for the time they had together, yada yada yada. And then he blows everything out of the water by saying Katniss is pregnant. And hold on, I'm just gonna read the scene because I love seeing everyone in the crowd just lose their collective shit, and then the victors will give an even bigger middle finger to the capital, and more importantly, to Snow. And so it starts with Peeta saying to Caesar, "I'm not glad. I wish we had waited until the whole thing was done officially. This takes Caesar aback. Surely even a brief time is better than no time." "Maybe I think that too, Caesar," says Peeta bitterly. "If it weren't for the baby." There. He's done it again. Dropped a bomb that wipes out the efforts of every tribute who came before him. Well, maybe not. Maybe this year he has only lit the fuse on a bomb that the victors themselves have been building, hoping someone would be able to detonate it, perhaps thinking it would be me in my bridal gown, not knowing how much I rely on Cinna's talents, whereas Peeta needs nothing more than his wits. As the bomb explodes, it sends accusations of injustice and barbarism and cruelty flying out in every direction. Even the most capital-loving, games-hungry, bloodthirsty person out there can't ignore, at least for a moment, how horrific the whole thing is. I am pregnant. The audience can't absorb the news right away. It has to strike them and sink in and be confirmed by other voices before they begin to sound like a herd of wounded animals, moaning, shrieking, calling for help. And me? I know my face is projected in a tight close-up on the screen, but I don't make any effort to hide it, because for a moment even I am working through what Peeta has said. Isn't it the thing I dreaded most about the wedding, about the future, the loss of my children to the games? And it could be true now, couldn't it? If I hadn't spent my life building up layers of defenses until I recoil at even the suggestion of marriage or a family. Caesar can't rein in the crowd again, not even when the buzzer sounds. Peeta nods his goodbye and comes back to his seat without any more conversation. I can see Caesar's lips moving, but the place is in total chaos, and I can't hear a word. Only a blast of the anthem cranked up so loud I can feel it vibrating through my bones, lets us know where we stand in the program. I automatically rise, and as I do, I sense Peter reaching out for me, tears running down his face as I take his hand. How real are those tears? Is this an acknowledgement that he has been stalked by the same fears that I have, that every victor has, every parent in every district in Panem? I look back to the crowd, but the faces of Rue's mother and father swim before my eyes, their sorrow, their loss. I turn spontaneously to chaff and offer my hand. I feel my fingers close around the stump that now completes his arm and hold fast. And then it happens. Up and down the row, the victors begin to join hands, some right away, like the Morphlings or Wyrus and Beatty, others unsure but caught up in the demands of those around them, like Brutus and Anabaria. By the time the anthem plays its final strains, all 24 of us stand in one unbroken line of what must be the first public show of unity among the districts since the dark days. You can see the realization of this as the screens begin to pop into blackness. It's too late, though. In the confusion, they didn't cut us off in time. Everyone has seen. Nothing like seeing a group of people who have been pushed around for years collectively say "fuck you" to a corrupt figure who has been in power too long. There's a bit of disorder, to say the least, once the lights are cut. Katniss and Peeta manage to get back inside to an elevator. Finnick and Joanna try to get in with them, but they're blocked off by peacekeepers. Peeta asks Katniss if there's anything he needs to apologize for. She says no, and she actually feels empowered by what he's done. As they wait, only Haymitch appears in the elevator. He says it's madness down there, and they've even canceled the interview recaps, which just shows the magnitude of what the victors have done. But it's, of course, not enough to cancel the games. And the others have been ordered to go home, so unfortunately Katniss and Peeta don't get a chance to say goodbye to Effie, and now it's time that they say their final goodbye to Haymitch. Peeta asks for any last-minute advice, and Haymitch responds with the classic "stay alive," and even gives him a hug and tells them to get some rest. Then Haymitch gives Katniss one final and kind of unexpected piece of advice. He tells her that when she's in the arena to remember who the enemy is. Katniss doesn't really know what to make of this. She and Peeta go straight to her room, worried that, if Peeta tries to go back to his room first, the door will lock and they won't be able to spend the night together. And they don't really sleep. They just kind of, lay in silence. In the morning, Cinna and Portia arrive to escort them to the arena. Katniss travels alone with Cinna like she had done the previous year. When they get to the lunchroom, they unwrap the outfit that Katniss will wear into the arena, which is a blue jumpsuit with a purple belt. And even Cinna's not quite sure what to make of it, but his best guess is that there will be a lot of sun. And they say their goodbyes. And there's a page left of the chapter, so naturally I have to read it. And just like how chapter 18 in the last book ended with something very devastating happening, aka Rue's death, it's only natural something similar happens here too. My dress was fantastic last night, I say. Fantastic and reckless, but Cinna must know that. I thought you might like it, he says with a tight smile. We sit, as we did last year, holding hands until the voice tells me to prepare for the launch. He walks me over to the circular metal plate and zips up the neck of my jumpsuit securely. Remember, girl on fire, I'm still betting on you. He kisses my forehead and steps back as the glass cylinder slides down around me. Thank you, I say, although he probably can't hear me. I lift my chin, holding my head high the way he always tells me to, and wait for the plate to rise. But it doesn't. And it still doesn't. I look at Cinna, raising my eyebrows for an explanation. He just gives his head a slight shake, as perplexed as I am. Why are they delaying this? Suddenly the doors behind him burst open, and 3 peacekeepers spring into the room. 2 pin Cinna's arms behind him and cuff him, while the third hits him in the temple with such force he's knocked to his knees, but they keep hitting him with metal-studded gloves opening gashes on his face and body. I'm screaming my head off, banging on the unyielding glass, trying to reach him. The peacekeepers ignore me completely as they drag Cinna's limp body from the room. All that's left are the smears of blood on the floor. Sickened and terrified, I feel the plate begin to rise. I'm still leaning against the glass when the breeze catches my hair and I force myself to straighten up. Just in time, too, because the glass is retreating and I'm standing free in the arena. Something seems to be wrong with my vision. The ground is too bright and shiny and keeps it undilating. I squint down at my feet and see that my metal plate is surrounded by blue waves that lap over my boots. Slowly, I raise my eyes and take in the water spreading out in every direction. I can only form one clear thought. This is no place for a girl on fire. So, yep, more signature devastating things happening from Suzanne. Thanks for that. Nothing like watching a beloved character die right before being thrust into another Hunger Games. Hey, fuck Snow. Fuck, just fuck Snow. Jesus Christ. Anyway, yeah, time to wrap up. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and thank you so much for your patience when I went on a kind of brief hiatus from doing these regular episodes over the past couple weeks. Links to all the socials and the show notes, you know how it is. Oh, and including Instagram, where you can see the post that I made that shows all the Covey members that have been casted for the Ballad movie, because excited about that. Yeah, I'm tired. I want to go to bed. So, I've forgotten how to wrap up and do the outro, apparently. Like, subscribe, comment, review, all that good stuff any good content creator is supposed to say. I don't know. But I really do appreciate you all for listening. And I hope you have a great day/night. And I will talk to you next time. Bye!